synagogue before he was confronted by security. This was not reported to police because the man walked away when challenged. Around 15 minutes later, he returned to the scene in a black Kia vehicle and deliberately drove the car at innocent members of the public before colliding with a wall. He stepped out of the vehicle armed with a knife and resumed his attack. He had a second knife in his possession and he was also wearing a hoax device on his person. This device has since been assessed and confirmed to be a non-viable device. Minutes after the first call was made to GMP, and as firearms officers were making their way to the scene, Al-Shami called 999, claiming responsibility for the attack. He also pledged allegiance to Islamic State. The attack continued, but thanks to the bravery of security staff, worshippers and the fast action of police, the attacker was prevented from gaining access to the synagogue. Adrian Dolby and Melvin Kravitz sadly died. 3 other men remain in hospital with serious injuries. Specially trained officers are in frequent contact with the families to provide them with support and to update them on our progress. We have conducted assessments across our systems, and I can reiterate that Al-Shami had never been referred to the PREVENT programme, nor was otherwise known to counter-terrorism policing. However, at this stage of the investigation, we are more confident that he was influenced by extreme Islamist ideology, and the 999 call forms part of this assessment. It's important to stress that we look across all the evidence gathered in order to make our assessment of the motivation behind the attack. This assessment continues, and there may be further drivers and motivations identified. We are also starting to understand more about him as an individual, and I'm grateful to all those who have contacted police with information. This remains a live counter-terrorism investigation. Although we have made significant progress since the attack took place, we are still in the relatively early stages and there is much work still to be done. We are also supporting the coroner in their respective investigation. I know there is significant public interest in this case and we will continue to release updates where possible. I want to record my sincere thanks to members of the local community for their patience and their support as we have conducted our inquiries. Without it, we would not have been able to progress this investigation at the pace we have. Finally, I know when we are faced with such horrific events, it sparks a lot of public discussion and commentary. However, I want to appeal to anybody with material that could be potentially useful to please share that with us directly. And in order to do that, you can visit the Major Incident Public Portal page online.
Hello there, I am Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. You were just listening there to an update from counter-terrorism policing about that absolutely horrendous terror attack on the synagogue. I'll cross live now to our GBNews national reporter, Will Godley. Will, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. Critical update from the police there.
Yeah, critical and also hugely significant. They wanted, of course, to make this update to reassure the Manchester Jewish community at a time when tensions are incredibly high. And I was up there in Manchester over the weekend when members of the Jewish community there telling me how unsafe they feel and how they feel that politicians aren't doing enough to protect them or keep them safe. Well, the police there providing an update about how their investigation is continuing at pace to try and reassure the community that they are investigating every single lead. And I can bring you now some of those things confirmed to us that Jihad al-Shami was the confirmed terrorist responsible for Thursday morning's attack on the Heaton Park Synagogue. And that, interestingly, we now know that during that attack, he called 999 and he said his name. He said that he was responsible for this attack, and also on the phone to the 999 operator, pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. And that has led police now to update us saying they are more confident that he was influenced by extreme Islamist ideology. Not, though, confirming that at this stage. They were saying they're more confident. There'll be continuing inquiries looking at his computer, his mobile phones, other books, texts from his house, and also continuing to question other people in relation to this case. The head of the counter-terror policing Northwest there saying that 6 people were arrested and questioned at length. 2 are released on Sunday, and further releases, he said, were planned for today. That's as the policing unit reaches their deadline. That was extended for 5 extra days on Saturday to question at length these people. They had arrested 4 further people. That has now, though, run out, and so we understand that those people will be released, but no confirmation from police there how many people will be released at this stage, just that further releases are planned. They also confirmed that he was not known to counter-terror police or prevent, and that they found a second knife on him and a hoax device, and that they said this is a live counter-terror investigation, one that is, they said, at the early stages but continuing at pace. They thanked the police officers and other people involved in this investigation for the speed at which they are working, and also gave an update on the 3 people still in hospital believed to be seriously injured, as the police said there, after Jihad al-Shami committed this horrific attack on the Heaton Park Synagogue that took the lives of 66-year-old father of 3 Melvin Kravitz and 53-year-old Adrian Dewbs. Michelle.
Thank you very much, Will, for that update. If I can just clarify briefly about the people that have been arrested. Of course, this is a live investigation, but just to remind you and just to reiterate what you were saying there, they said that they'd interviewed 6 people, arrested, and interviewed 6 people at length. 2 of those people were released without charge on Sunday, and further releases planned for today. And then he echoed, of course, this does not mean that our investigation had concluded. Very sad to hear that people are still struggling in hospital there, and of course we wish them all the very best with their recovery. Absolutely horrendous, sickening terror attack that we all saw. Now, keeping me company on my panel tonight, of course, we all know it's been the party conference season. We've followed them all at length, whether it's been Labour, whether it's Reform, and today it was the turn of the Tories. And it kind of would have been lost on many of you that there was somewhat of a potential relaunch taking place within the Tory party today. So I thought to myself, some of you might agree with the right, some of you might disagree with the right, and some of you might even need to choose between the right. So I thought to myself, what better thing to do than to get Reform UK alongside the Tories. So to do that, Zia Youssef and Mark Francois keep me company until 7 o'clock. But before I do get into all of the political whys and wherefores, I just want to take a moment, Mark, just to reflect on some of the things that we've been hearing from the counter-terror policing just then. Your friend, David Amos, was attacked, murdered by an Islamist terrorist. I imagine that this brings quite a few emotions to you, listening to that again tonight. Your thoughts?
Thank you. It does a bit, really. He was my best friend. I still miss him. We all do, actually. But on this, well, firstly, important to echo what you said about the wounded from the attack. Our thoughts are with all of them, and indeed with the families who lost loved ones. I think the most interesting thing from the statement is the police will be very anxious to establish, was this person a lone wolf who'd maybe been radicalised by what he'd seen online, or was he acting in concert with others? So the fact that they've arrested and interviewed 6 people, they then released 2 of those, they then say they'll be releasing more later today. They will have wanted to interview those people in detail about what links, if any, they had with this guy, and hopefully at some point they will be able to tell us whether or not they believed he was indeed a lone wolf or whether he was part of some kind of wider network. I mean, it will take time to establish that, but that is something everybody is going to want to know, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you have just tuned in, you've missed the top of the hour there. You have just missed that update from counter-terrorism policing. They've just been explaining the situation with that horrendous terror attack on the synagogue that took place last week. The guy there involved called 999 himself and took responsibility for it. Turns out that he was an Islamist with some kind of link or inspiration or whatever you want to call it to IS. Multiple people, 6 people in fact, been arrested. Released without charge, 2 of them on Sunday night, and further release is planned for today. But it does continue to be a live counter-terrorism investigation. Zia, Youssef, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are with the families of the victims, everyone who's been affected by this, Michelle. But look, let's be clear, Jewish people being murdered in cold blood on the basis of their faith in this country is a tragic indictment of the state of affairs in this country. And I want everyone to know that everyone at Reform stands with the Jewish community. I do think the environment of two-tier policing is in no small part a driver of all of this. If you remember, do you remember when those cars, it was all over social media? Do you remember when people were driving around shouting, "We're going to rape your daughters"? Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
That horrific
Sickening
footage. And no charges were brought. No charges were brought. No one faced consequences for that. So how can we be surprised when this sort of thing then happens? I worry, frankly. I think our security service and our police do an amazing job, but it does worry me that this person wasn't known at all, seemingly, to counter-terrorism. And the fact that the police now feel confident to be able to say that it was Islamist-inspired, well, he did call 999 and declare that he an allegiance to the Islamic State, to ISIS. So, look, I want to reiterate, our security service and our police do an incredible job under very difficult circumstances. But these are really worrying times, Michelle.
They really are. And, this point about it being an Islamist terror attack, I remember, I didn't know Sir David Amis. I can't claim that I did. But by all accounts, very thoroughly decent man. But I remember in the immediate aftermath of his murder, how very quickly we were all pushed into a route of having a conversation about everyone needs to be nicer to each other on social media. Let's not all be divided. Let's not all look back on the hate. They didn't seem anyone, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you were much closer to it, Mark, they didn't seem anyone that seemed able or willing to accept this for what it was, call it what it was, and demand answers and somehow for this Islamist stuff to stop. Am I wrong?
Well, I described, just to follow your point, thank you for that. I described him in my eulogy in the Commons. So he was murdered on the Friday and we paid tribute the following Monday as the best bloke I ever knew. And I stand by that. Now, at the time, we were all pretty traumatised by it.
Of course.
And it was very heavily stressed to all of us not to say anything which might materially prejudice a potential prosecution. We all wanted this guy nailed, but we didn't want to do anything that could allow him somehow to get off on some kind of human rights legal technicality. I remember all of this, very well at the time. While I'm here, it seems that this man was not known to Prevent, but the man who murdered David, I'm not even going to mention his name, was known to Prevent. He had one interview from someone from Prevent in a McDonald's, and they wrote a report that said, well, he seems a nice enough guy. So they clearly completely missed him. I still would like to see this included in a public inquiry. If it can't be a separate public inquiry about David's murder, the next best thing is to tweak the terms of reference for the Southport inquiry, which clearly is going to talk about failures in Prevent, and then use that as a mechanism to investigate it, because Prevent clearly does not do what it says on the tin, and we need to get to the bottom of that.
We've actually, long-term viewers might recall, we've had Sir Davis' daughter, Katie. She's been on this channel. I mean, she's been absolutely devastated by what's gone on. She feels thoroughly let down by some of the responses. And, of course, she echoes your calls as well for a public inquiry on that situation as well. Absolutely horrendous. Sarah, I'm going to cut to the chase on this one. Islamist terrorism. Do you think prominent people within the Muslim community, whether it's imams or whatever, need to be doing more to try and, I don't know, help stamp out Islamist ideology?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, but ultimately I think it's incumbent, look, this is a politics show, it's incumbent on politicians to ensure that we have the right legislation in place and that the laws, by the way, that we have on the statute books are actually applied in an even-handed fashion, which they are not currently, and the Crown Prosecution Service actually prosecutes in an even-handed way, which, in my humble opinion, it does not, and judges jail people in an even-handed way, which I do not think is the case. And I will say it again, I think it is absolutely clear that there is two-tier policing and two-tier justice in this country. It is driving tragic consequences. Look, I do want to make the point that our leader, the leader of Reform, Nigel Farage, his security was cut to the tune of 75% in recent weeks, not just almost coinciding perfectly with the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk in America. And I know, you know, the police make independent decisions, but I'm sorry, Shabana Mahmood, I know Sir David Davis has written to it. He hasn't ostensibly heard anything back. I certainly haven't heard anything. I really worry about the safety of MPs across every single political party. And frankly, we have two-tier policing in this country. The vast majority of MI5's caseload are Islamist terrorists or are potential suspected Islamist terrorists, and I think it's a real concern.
Look, many of you will have very strong opinions on this. Of course, you can join the conversation in all the usual ways. I shall bring you into the conversation after the break, and I'll end as I began, which is my thoughts are with everyone that is still battling, for their health after that attack. And for everyone, I know that many of you feel very afraid at the moment. You get in touch and you tell me it's an awful, awful state of affairs. I'll see you in 2.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on a BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, alongside me tonight, because of course it was the turn of the Tories today to conclude their party conferences, and no offence to any politicians, but I for one am pretty damn glad that these conferences, I can't help it, Mark, I actually found them a little bit boring, right. I can't lie. But anyway, they have all now concluded alongside me, Tulsi Zia, Youssef and Mark Francois. Now, when I was watching Kemi Badenoch's speech today, it felt to me, and you can be the judge of it at home, that there was an attempt at least to try and relaunch, rebrand, you name it, the Tory party. There was a very kind of rabbit out of the hat announcement towards the end of the speech. Took many people by surprise. Take a listen.
I have looked at the rates you have to pay to see if we can lower them. I have decided that we can't, because that simply wouldn't be enough. Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
Well, there you go. I can tell you that has excited many people, this whole notion of stamp duty. It's a ridiculous tax. And, of course, many of you might have big houses, you've had families, you want to downsize, but you can't because you haven't got the money to move. Many of you might struggle to get on the housing ladder. You can't do it because you haven't got that extra money for the stamp duty, so on and so forth. Mark, at the beginning of this speech, Kemi Badenoch, she was talking and she was all about, right, to succeed as a country, you've got to have strong borders, strong economy. And my eyes glazed over. And I thought, if you want strong borders and strong economy, what are you doing on the stage? Because it was you guys that messed that up. Am I being harsh?
Well, I was there, I was at the match, as they say. And I went to my first party conference in 1987. So that dates me, but because of that, I can say this. Listening to Kemi's speech, there were a couple of occasions when it was like listening to the old girl herself. It was a bit like listening to Margaret Thatcher, just once or twice, particularly when she was talking about economic freedom, about entrepreneurialism, about people taking a chance and starting a business. I can remember being in the hall years ago when Thatcher was talking about that. So she delivered it brilliantly, and, the representatives came out of that hall buzzing. You just got to take my word for it. I was there, right? Now, on the point about stamp duty itself, there have been some suggestions sometimes to move around the thresholds. No, she's cut to the chase. She's going to abolish it. It was a rabbit out of the hat. It didn't leak, I'm afraid. None of your media colleagues somehow had got hold of it. There was no speculation on Twitter. It was a real zinger at the end. And this will help, as you say, people who want to downsize. It will also help people who are struggling to get onto the housing ladder. It costs about, according to the IFS estimates, about £4.5 billion in taxation foregone in a full tax year. But we can cover that because we also announced at the conference £47 billion of targeted savings in public expenditure. So, perhaps where Liz Truss didn't do so well is she announced all these tax cuts, but she never said how she would pay for them. We've learnt that mistake, and we've given a lot of detail on how we would do that. £23 billion by restricting welfare, £8 billion by returning the civil service to where it was in 2016, £7 billion from the AIM budget, £4 billion by restricting non-UK citizens from access to social housing, and so on and so forth. So if you're going to offer a tax cut, to be credible, you've got to say how you're going to pay for it. We've offered a tax cut. we've said how we're going to pay for it.
Right, well, there you go. Keen viewers of Dewbs & Co will know that often my panel is split left, right, not always, but often. Tonight, I thought it'd be interesting to do it slightly different because many of you will have voted for one or the other of these two gents, and you might be trying to make your mind about which way you're going to go forward, which is why I wanted to get them on together. But also, I want to share with you the left perspective on all this. The Labour Party tweeted out the Conservatives haven't learned anything from the economy crashing days of Liz Truss. They say that the Tories should be apologising, not peddling the same fantasy economics. They say the Tories simply cannot be trusted. Reform UK, Zia Youssef, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think by Kemi's standards, it was actually a pretty good speech by her standards. But look, the reality is the country's not listening to the Tories anymore. Because the Tories, in the 14 years they spent in government, Michelle, not only did they not do the things that they promised to do in manifesto after manifesto after manifesto, they literally did the polar opposite. In 4 consecutive manifestos, they promised to bring net migration. And immigration right now is the #1 issue in the country, according to YouGov, with all voters. They, instead of cutting it to tens of thousands, as they promised in 4 consecutive manifestos, they left office with a number at over 1 million and left office with the total number across those 14 years at 6.5 million. They talk about fiscal responsibility and living within our means. It's insulting the viewers of this programme and voters' intelligence. They tripled the national debt to almost £3 trillion. They took, in the process of doing that, they took the tax burden on working people to the highest level since World War II and made everyone's life worse in the process. They allowed wokery to run rampant throughout our institutions. They unleashed the Boris wave, the millions of people. That's probably the most powerful, tragically powerful part of the Tory legacy, the Boris wave. Millions of people who were imported here from non-EU countries, unskilled, against the wishes of the British people, who unchecked, allowed to just continue down the current path, will get indefinite leave to remain and will be able to live off the state. Half of them have never worked and will never work, and they will be able to live off the state and welfare at the behest of the people watching this programme in the form of their taxes. Look, the Tory party is dead, Michelle. The people, the voters are no longer listening to them, and frankly, it is nothing less than they deserve.
I want to add some colour to this, the points that Zia's just been making. This is what I want to push on to you, Mark. So if I would just pop onto the screen, this is net migration. So I think this graph, if you've not got your reading spectacles on the left, it starts at 2012 and it ends October 2024. Your black dotted line, that's your total. Your red bar, that's non-EU. Your blue bars, that's EU. Marc Francois, when I look at that, I mean, I don't need to be a statistician to look at that and think to myself, whoever was responsible for that growth, I probably would be cautious about trusting them to manage immigration going forward. That's what some of my viewers would be thinking right now.
Well, I mean, what Zia said, I mean, was probably written this morning before Kemi stood up and said a word. You know, there's nothing original in there that I haven't heard from Reform before. The truth is they're not
They're called hard facts.
Well,
I don't need to write them down, because everyone watching this programme knows the truth.
Look, you call me mate, I'm not your mate. You don't quite know how to react to what Kemi did. You haven't really worked out how to deal with it. You've accused us for months of having no firm policies. You got 23 specific policy announcements over the course of a week. They're very punchy. Stamp duty abolition is massively aspirational. On immigration, yes, it was too high. And Kemi gave a speech within a few weeks of taking over as leader, and she said that. It's now legal migration is beginning to fall. Partly, it must be said, because some of the changes Jenrick put in, for instance, restricting the number of family members that could come to Britain when you took on someone to be a care worker. So it's actually coming down now, partly because of the changes we made. And on illegal migration, I suspect we would both agree you cannot seriously deal with illegal migration if you're not going to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. I wish we'd done this years ago, but we've done it. We've been absolutely clear. We've bitten the bullet. And the party's been completely united. I was told for years if we ever actually said this, the Tory party would explode and the temple of the curtain would be rent into... It hasn't. You've had absolute unity. You had absolute unity in that hall. You want to combat illegal migration, you've got to leave the ECHR, and we've absolutely pledged to do it. So, to summarise all of that, very policy, even The Guardian called it a policy-heavy speech, and the truth is, you don't quite know what to make of it, do you?
Well, Mark, no, I don't know where you got the idea that anyone accused the Tories of not having policies. No one cares about Tory policies anymore because we trusted the whole country, huge sections of the country, Mark, trusted the Tories. Election after election after election. Boris Johnson had an 80-seat majority. People were cock-a-hoop about that. And you remember in his victory speech, he goes, I won't betray you, I will not let you down. And basically, before the speech had even finished, he had begun the most monumental betrayal of the British voters, probably on record
he took us out of the
history.
EU.
The reality is this.
No,
the reality is this. Here's the reality. The reality is...
He said he'd get Brexit done,
and he took back control of our borders, and he threw them open and brought in 3.8 million people. He brought in 3.8 million people over the course of just over 4 years, the vast majority of whom, over 90% of whom, were non-EU. The fiscal consequence of that is going to be north of £250 billion pounds. The Tories are a party full of people who will say absolutely anything to get elected. And again, not just not do the things that they promise, but literally do the opposite. And that, I'm afraid, is why the Tory party is dead.
If I may.
You may, go on.
Your problem is you are one-club golfers. You talk about one issue. Now, admittedly, it's a controversial issue. We've said some things today.
I think most people watching at home care deeply about immigration.
I'm not saying
your attempt to dismiss this, it is singularly the most catastrophic thing that the Tory government did. And I'm afraid your willingness to try to dismiss this, Mark, your willingness to try to dismiss this, frankly, does yourself and does you a massive disservice.
Look, I'm not dismissing it. I just said you go on and on about one thing. We made an announcement at the conference, I feel passionate about this, about not having two-tier justice for Northern Ireland veterans. Starmer's now going to change the law to make it easier for Sinn Féin and their supporters to go after them and actually to help Gerry Adams sue the British taxpayer. As a party, you've hardly said anything about that.
That's not true.
Well,
Sarah Pochin has talked about this week upon week upon week,
for about
Mark.
the last 6 weeks.
Look, I'm sorry, all of these lines are clearly rehearsed. They're not true.
They're not rehearsed
And the reality is, again, your willingness to try to dismiss the total engulfing of this country by millions of people who were never... The British people voted against mass immigration, voted for less immigration time and time again.
If I may,
and your Prime Minister, 4 in a row, threw open our borders,
You're
Mark.
making my point for me.
Right, I'm going to make...
All you can talk about is immigration.
Cool. Well, I think the viewers care deeply about that, Mark. I'm afraid the bad news for you is the viewers care deeply about immigration.
Right, the viewers care deeply, and you said you've got a question, and I want to give you time. So what I'm going to do is going to have my break now. You can have your question after the break. I'll see you all in a minute.
You're just one-club golfers.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
There are a couple of watch points with the weather across southern Europe as we go through tomorrow. Heavy thundery rain around eastern Spain, and Storm Barbara affecting southeastern parts of Europe, pushing into western Turkey, could bring 100 to 150 millimetres of rain. Elsewhere, lots of dry weather, but like I said, across eastern Spain towards the Balearics, heavy thundery rain through the next few days could bring 200 millimetres or so in some places, which is around 3 times the October average. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There is a little bit of rain pushing its way southwards across northern parts through tonight into tomorrow, but many places staying largely dry. The rain in the north is due to a frontal system that's already made its way in across northern and western Scotland, and with this we're seeing the winds strengthening further as we go through the night, risk of gales in some exposed spots. The rain does also edge its way southwards into southern parts of Scotland, perhaps northern England and Northern Ireland as we head towards dawn tomorrow, but further south across much of England and Wales staying largely dry, some clear spells around, and with light winds, clear spells, temperatures are going to drop, and there could be some locally dense patches of fog forming as we head through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Otherwise, through tomorrow morning, then a mostly dry start across much of Scotland, the rain having pushed its way in towards the south. And so the borders area waking up to a bit of a damp picture, and also quite damp across Northern Ireland. And there will be a few spots of rain across some parts of northern England where the cloud is thick enough. But across the rest of England and Wales, really, it's a dry start to the day, and there will be some sunshine around. And so that sunshine should help clear any mist and fog patches that do develop overnight. Staying pretty grey, quite murky with low cloud and drizzly rain across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, parts of northern England and perhaps the far north of Wales as well through tomorrow. Otherwise, a generally dry picture, often quite cloudy, but there should be some sunshine breaking through, and in the sunshine feeling relatively warm with temperatures in the high teens for most of us. Overnight, there will be a bit more damp weather pushing into parts of western Scotland. That will clear, though, as we go through into Friday. And so actually Friday for many, away from perhaps Orkney and Shetland, where there'll be a few showery bursts of rain around, actually Friday looks like a largely dry day with some decent sunshine on offer. Quite a bit of cloud to come as we go through this weekend, particularly on Sunday, but most of us will see the sunshine at times. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists on the A9 Dornoch Bridge should proceed with caution due to high winds. Congestion is reported on the A470 northbound at Nantgarve. In Cheshire West and Chester, drivers on the A483 northbound between the A5156 and A55 face up to 50-minute delays. Meanwhile, broken down vehicles are affecting travel on the A303 westbound between the junctions with the M3 and the A34 in Hampshire. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway is experiencing disruption on multiple routes, and there is also disruption between Ipswich and Felixstowe on Greater Anglia services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello everybody, Dewbs and Co with me, Michelle, Dewberry, Mark Francois and Zia Youssef. One of my viewers, Elizabeth, she's got in touch saying, are you going to discuss that call from Lenny Henry about reparations? Jesus. No, I'm not, Elizabeth. I thought it was so ridiculous that I couldn't even be bothered to fill half my show up talking about it. Lots of you, Phil says, Michelle, you're talking about the Islamist terrorists at the top of the programme. We've got thousands of people being monitored by police as potential threats. Phil, you're talking my language. I cannot for the life of me understand why we've got people that counter-terrorism are so concerned about that they literally follow them around 24/7. If those people, some of them have got dual citizenship, they should be out. What on earth are we thinking in this country? I do want to return to the politics. Mark Francois, you said you had a question for Zia Youssef. What is it?
Yes, a straightforward question. I mean, I declare an interest. My father was a D-Day veteran. He was on a minesweeper that day, got all his naval papers. He drummed into me that, you know, the first duty of government, above all others, is the defence of the realm, right? You know, we've got a war in Ukraine. And, you know, sometimes, you know, reform have been a bit ambiguous on your position on that. But here's a straight question. You're a party preparing for government, so you say. Who's your defence spokesman?
Well, firstly, hats off to his service and what he did on D-Day. My question to you would be, how on earth did you allow tens of thousands of fighting-age males to turn up on our beaches, uninvited, and how did you leave office with those numbers at record levels? More fighting-age men have arrived in this country. I mean, north of 100,000 more people overall have arrived on our beaches uninvited than stormed the beaches of D-Day of Normandy on D-Day, and that is the catastrophe that you seem to be eager to scurry away from, I'm afraid. And again, people watching this programme were not born yesterday. They're not stupid, and they don't have memories of goldfish. And your unwillingness to apologise for that and say you got it catastrophically wrong, again, does you a NHS service.
Right.
Zia, I just asked you a very simple question.
Right, we don't
Who
need to
is your defence spokesman?
Right, you're a start-up party, you're forming your team, have you mirrored all the roles yet?
You know the answer to that question, and that's why you asked it, which is that right now we have 5 MPs.
Yes.
We are, by the time we go into the next general election, you will have a crystal clear answer to that, and it will be somebody formidable whom the British people will look at and say, that is somebody whom we can entrust with the repair, frankly, of our armed forces that were utterly hollowed out under 14 years of Tory under Tory.
Who's your health spokesman?
I'll tell you who it's not going to be. It's not going to be Matt Hancock. It's not going to be literally the worst person on the planet you could have as our health secretary during the greatest health emergency since World War II. I'm sorry, but
I'll tell you for why.
I'll tell you what. Every single question you might ask like that is going to be a farce.
Excuse me, I ain't got all day to sit here going through all the different cabinet roles and shadow cabinet roles. It's a start-up party. They're forming the team. He doesn't have counter-offers to each and every single one of your roles. I wouldn't expect a start-up party to have them. Would you expect them? Because it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what these two think. It matters what you think. Mark Francois is saying to Zia is a one-trick pony, basically focusing on immigration. I would put to you lot at home, they focus on that because I know I talk to you every day. It's one of the #1 issues. The key question in all of this, can the Tories win back your trust, whether it's immigration or otherwise? Let's cross live to the pollster, Scarlett Maguire. Scarlett, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Party season has now concluded. Where are we at when it comes to the polling?
Well, in terms of the Conservative Party, they're in a pretty perilous state. So they had their worst ever electoral defeat in July of last year. And now they've gone backwards. They've lost another third of their vote share even since then. Of course, Labour has gone backwards as well. And the main beneficiaries of the Conservatives and Labour Party's demise at the moment is Reform UK, who are averaging just about 30% in the polls. The Conservatives down in the mid-teens, which is in pretty dangerous territory for them.
Interesting stuff. So, in summary, to summarise, actually, I think Mark missed the first part of that. You're saying it's not looking good for the Tories. That is your summary takeaway. When it comes to the issues, topical issues, do you do polling around what issues are important to people?
Yeah, the most important issues to voters are immigration, the cost of living, the economy, and the health service and other public services. When you look at Conservative and Reform voters, the immigration issue is especially important. And again, this is why it's quite difficult for the Conservative Party. At the moment, when the public are asked who they would trust to stop the boats or to stop illegal migration, the Conservative Party actually currently rank behind not just Reform, not just Labour, but also Don't Know as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether Kemi Badenoch's big announcement on the ECHR and the policy paper that came out with that, whether that starts to move the dial. But at the moment, the Conservatives are less trusted than those main parties and even Don't Know on one of those most important issues to voters.
Really interesting. Scarlett Maguire, thank you very much for that insight. Just a summary, could you hear?
Yeah, in the end I caught it, yes, sorry, yeah.
So you got the gist, it doesn't look good for the Tories, that's what she was saying. And I want to explore this, because the thing for me, ladies and gents, I don't care where you sit politically, and you're hearing, some of you will be on the right of politics, some of you will be listening to these two, trying to work out where to place your votes, whether it's even in the May election or beyond. I'm trying to unpick and get to the bottom of some of this stuff. Trust, it is a key issue. Will the Tories win back your trust if indeed they had it beforehand? If so, how can they do that? I'll see you in a minute.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Tonight there was an attempt to try and relaunch the right of politics at the Tory party conference, and that is what I'm focusing in on tonight. Zia Youssef and Mark Francois, Reform UK and the Tories. Mick, says Michelle, when it comes to Kemi Badenoch, the difference is if Thatcher was saying all this today, it would have been done. He says, I don't believe a word that the Tories, Labour or Lib Dems say. He feels that he would give you guys a chance because you're currently untested. This sense is coming. Susie says it was a great speech by Kemi Badenoch, but at no point did she properly apologise for the last 14 years. Talk is cheap. I want to get these graphs back up again because this is the key point. We've just been having a pollster, Scarlett Maguire. She said that one of the key issues is immigration. You're saying that these guys are a one-trick pony. This is the point. I'm going to show you a couple of graphs. This is the immigration one from 2012 till 2024. It is, I mean, if you're listening on the radio, you can't see what I'm showing you, but it's massive. It's gone out of control. That's a short version. The next graph, if I show you, this is debt to GDP ratio. It starts at 1993. It goes on to 2024, 2025. If you're listening on the radio, take my word for it. It is out of control again. Let me just come up to you on this here. You are the fresh face about town, because ultimately you guys are competing for the same voters. I mean, when you look at this, you listen to the speech today and you see those graphs, your thoughts?
Well, again, on every level, not only did the Tories not do the things that they promised in 4 consecutive plus manifestos, they literally did the opposite. And again, people watching this programme, I think, will actually be quite offended by the notion that the Tories can run away from their record. And actually, to that point that was just made about talk is cheap, yes, it certainly is in the case of the Tories, and they failed to apologise. Kemi Badenoch actually said a line for the ages, which is, and I quote, that they did many great things during their 14 years, which will be news to people watching this programme and to voters. And even on the economy, you know, you want to take the terrain, fight the battle on the terrain of the economy. Let's talk about that. You tripled the national debt to almost 3 trillion quid. You took public spending as a percentage of GDP to almost Soviet Union levels at one point, and you made everyone's life worse in the process. Is there any shiny new infrastructure for us to enjoy? Are there great life experiences? No, quite the opposite.
There's a small matter of a global pandemic.
You catastrophically mismanaged the economy. And so, again, what the British voters are sick and tired of is Tory politicians, frankly, willing to say absolutely anything to say to get themselves elected and then betraying every principle they were elected to uphold.
Look, We took us out of the EU. We said we get Brexit done, we got it done. We improved education in this country to where now our reading scores are the 4th best in the whole world. We did that with the Academy programme. That's something we made work. On defence, we backed the Ukrainians to the hilt. Boris Johnson went to Kyiv within weeks. When Russia invaded, Nigel said NATO had provoked them. You've always had a problem on the Ukraine issue.
Our military is hollowed out. You should know, if you speak to people in our military like we do, our military is absolutely hollowed out as a direct result of your government's policies.
It really is my go. You talked about the economy, you talked about controlling public spending. There was a pandemic, everybody's spending went up. You're going to get rid of the 2-child benefit cap. That's going to cost billions and billions and billions. We talked about restricting welfare spending today. We talked about those basically who can work, should work. Why are you going to get rid of the 2-child benefit cap, and what's that going to cost?
The notion that anyone is going to take anything that Tories say about anything to do with policy, frankly, is for the birds. In fact, if you're being accurate about this and actually looking at the data on what the Tories have done relative to what they've said, you'd be taking literally every single thing that the Tories announced at this conference and assume they would do literally the opposite when they are in government. The Tories spend money like drunken sailors, threw open our borders and allowed the invasion of our country to the tune of hundreds of thousands of people.
You're making my point for me.
I am a one-shirt wonder, and my shirt is almost coming to an end. Very quick, yes or no? Would there ever be some form of pact between Reform and the Tories here?
No.
Mark?
They don't want one.
Well, there you go. You, ladies and gents, will be the final judge. I've got to tell you as well, it's not just all about these lot. Lib Dems, they were driving around and around in circles in a van today. Look.
My message to you is this. Come, Conservative friends. Help us save our country. Come and win with us.
There you go. Never mind this lot. Ed Davies says that he is the answer. That's all I've got time for. Thanks, panel. Thanks to you at home. I've enjoyed your company.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There is a little bit of rain pushing its way southwards across northern parts through tonight into tomorrow, but many places staying largely dry. The rain in the north is due to a frontal system that's already made its way in across northern and western Scotland, and with this we're seeing the winds strengthening further as we go through the night, risk of gales in some exposed spots. The rain does also edge its way southwards into southern parts of Scotland, perhaps northern England and Northern Ireland as we head towards dawn tomorrow, but further south across much of England and Wales, staying largely dry, some clear spells around, and with light winds, clear spells, temperatures are going to drop and there could be some locally dense patches of fog forming as we head through the early hours of tomorrow morning. Otherwise, through tomorrow morning then, a mostly dry start across much of Scotland, the rain having pushed its way in towards the south, and so the borders area waking up to a bit of a damp picture, and also quite damp across Northern Ireland, and there will be a few spots of rain across some parts of northern England where the cloud is thick enough, but across the rest of England and Wales really it's a dry start to the day, and there will be some sunshine around, and so that sunshine should help clear any mist and fog patches that do develop overnight. Staying pretty grey, quite murky with low cloud and drizzly rain across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, parts of northern England and perhaps the far north of Wales as well through tomorrow. Otherwise, a generally dry picture, often quite cloudy, but there should be some sunshine breaking through, and in the sunshine feeling relatively warm with temperatures in the high teens for most of us. Overnight there will be a bit more damp weather pushing into parts of western Scotland. That will clear though as we go through into Friday, and so actually Friday for many, away from perhaps Orkney and Shetland where there'll be a few showery bursts of rain around, actually Friday looks like a largely dry day with some decent sunshine on offer. Quite a bit of cloud to come as we go through this weekend, particularly on Sunday, but most of us will see the sunshine at times. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.